Over to you,
Excellent.
Andy.
Thanks very much, Janice. Well, first of all, I just want to touch on the awards. It was a very different Saturday awards event, and I say we came together to celebrate the incredible achievements and contributions from clubs, and we have to include public parks in that as well, coaches, schools, universities throughout the county. And we celebrated the many inspirational individuals involved in tennis. And you dedicate your time and energy into developing the growth of our sport. So first of all, you know, a lot of you are volunteers. Majority of you are. So thanks for what you're doing. And we celebrated, you know, many clubs and individuals on Saturday. So we just like to show you quickly. We'll have that 10 minutes of glory again for the winners, if that's okay. So Emma and Jane, if you'd like to share that one more time,
just
please.
pick up where is it? There it is.
Good morning, everybody. Share.
Yep. There you go.
Here's a little bit of a breakdown of who our winners were. So can everyone see that? Can you see that screen? Yeah. Yeah, great. Okay, so junior player was Eloise. The 12 and under boys were the county team for the team of the year. The adult team of the year was very difficult to choose. The men's 45, it was the first year they'd won that category, hence their recognition for the award. And the Kent Women's County Cup team have done it over several years now. Small club of the year, 1 to 4 courts, was Harrietsham, so congratulations to them. And club of the year was Canterbury for 5 courts plus. The young person was Jack Pegden. School was Chislehurst Sidcup, and that award is sponsored by Head. So they all the schools in that category will get a box of balls for them to use in their programs. University was Canterbury Christchurch. We actually only had one university enter that category, so we're working there to see if we can get some more engagement on that one as well. And then if we go, there we go. So the coach of the year was Chris Hollands at Hythe. He's got a very strong programme going on there. Mark Ruffle at Park Langley was performance coach. Official was Jason Baker. I think everybody knows Jason for county champs, as well as things that he runs within his club. Competition was a Northwest Kent Rural Box League, which is an initiative between New Ash Green, and I never get this right, but hopefully people will know what I mean, Trotterscliffe, but it's not said like that. So apologies, anybody, if I've got that wrong. Gravesham and Mepham. So that was a new league that was started in the year. Tennis Opened Up was the Goodwara at Gravesend project. I don't know if anybody's seen the socials on that. That's an opportunity, that's an initiative started with the Sikh temple there. Andy and Rob went along to the festival there, and there was about 4,000 people there, and it resulted in some initiative with Gravesham and new members joining there, especially children. The park venue was Deal and Dover. That's Karen Hodgson, and she's working with local parks over in Deal and Dover. Kathy Sabin was our very lovely Andy Candler, which is very well deserved. I think everybody knows how involved he is. And the Lifetime Achievement went to Sue Greenwood of Harrietsham, who's, I think from her nomination, has been involved with tennis for about 40, 50 years at least. So she's done amazing things there. LTA President's Award, and this is an award that isn't actually judged by county. It's an award that anybody can be nominated for, and it goes straight through to the LTA. So we had 2 nominees in that category this year, which were Andy and Colin. So that will go straight through to national level, and we'll be feeding back on that as soon as we hear. We also had another award, which was the Kent President's Award, which I don't know if anybody has heard of. Luke Saunders. He's quite an inspirational young man who's had, their family's had a bereavement within there, and he continues to inspire lots of individuals to take on tennis, and he's just an inspirational young man. So Luke Saunders won that award. So yes, it's a great evening.
Thanks very much, Emma. Thank you. So again, well done for all the winners, the finalists. As I said, definitely a different look awards, but you know, one that definitely coincides with, you know, Kent's vision and the LTA's vision of opening up tennis. So thank you. So we want to move on to introducing David Priaulx with us today. He's Senior Commercial Manager of Carbon 3. And I will say something. I've got a link here, David, first of all. So I'm reading through the environmental sustainability updates by Scott Lloyd, the LTA Chief Exec. And yeah, he mentions Roehampton and how they're trying to sort of push up their green credentials. So so well done in that. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Andy.
So yeah, so when did you get involved in the Roehampton project, and how did sort of well, Scott Lloyd or the LTA contact you in the first place?
Yes, I mean the Roehampton. I think we did that a couple of years ago now. So Roehampton first came to us in 2022. I remember our first meeting down there. There was a little bit of involvement from a company called Eco Green Roofs. So they're another business that basically they're a roofing company, but they specialise in green roofs, which for anyone that doesn't know is like a living roof where you've got plants on a roof and it helps to offset CO2. In a similar way you would with solar panels. And then one of the challenges we have a lot is integrating solar PV and green roofs together, which we see quite often in new build developments where people are looking for planning credentials and stuff like that. So they fill a roof with green roof, and then they think, right, we'll chuck solar panels on there, and it doesn't always work. So we've been working with them for a few years to sort of integrate their technology with ours to make sure that both work well. So that's how the link came there. I mean, Roehampton itself, it was actually driven by one of the members. One of their members, who I think also sits on the board there, is a keen sort of activist and a real sort of believer in renewable technology. And I think he really, from within, pushed the club to say, so we must be looking at this. We're spending a hell of a lot on energy. We could be sort of doing some great stuff for the environment and saving money at the same time. So that's really where that came from. Yeah, it came from there. Apologies if you can see my puppy. Today she's just jumped up on me. I thought that might happen at one stage. But yeah, so that's how that happened. I mean, I've got a video we can show showing you what we did at Roehampton. I can talk to you more about Carbon Free, what we do, and how what we do could help your clubs. I don't know where you want me to start from, Andy, really.
Yeah, please. Yeah, the video would be great, actually. If you could play the video, that'd be fine.
Let's try that. Now, forgive me, most of the remote meetings that we do are on Teams. So I've become a Teams expert in the last couple of years. Zoom is not one we use quite as regularly, but hopefully it will work in a similar way.
Yeah. Just giving you co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, perfect. Right, let me know if you can see that now.
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
So let's go with the video, which is trying to load. Here we go. So forgive me, we can cut this short because this goes on for longer than it needs to. Let me mute it as well. So this is Roehampton Club. This is a full sort of drone flyover of all the buildings we did. The directive here was quite simple. They wanted to fill every bit of roof space they had that was suitable for solar with panels. So one thing you'll see there, the building we're flying over at the moment is the main building at Roehampton, and we've done something quite strange there that you wouldn't normally do, and we've used every roof elevation, so the north, the south, the east, the west. The reason we've done that is because that roof is almost flat, as you can kind of see from there. It's only about 5-degree pitch. So normally in the UK and in the northern hemisphere, you wouldn't look to face panels north because they don't generate half as much as a south facing panel. But here it's like the club asked us to do, basically just to maximize the roof space they had. And from what we've seen and where we're monitoring these systems, they're still performing quite well. There's some other considerations we had to take into place here. So you'll see there's quite a large tree that sits to the side of the building. That will cause some intermittent shading to the panels throughout the day. What we've done there is we've fitted optimizers to the panels on that side, and very simply what that does is it means when that tree is shading the panels, without going into too much technical detail, a solar panel system is generally only as strong as its weakest panel. So the panels are all connected in strings. So if you've got 20 panels on a string would be normal. If 19 are in perfect sunshine, but one's in the shade, the one that's in the shade is going to massively affect the performance of the others. But by fitting optimizers, it turns each panel essentially into its own system. So if one's in the shade, it doesn't affect the others. So that's what we did to offset the effect of shading there. You can see there that's the squash building at Roehampton. The building that we're above at the moment, interestingly, we didn't do because they don't own it. They lease that building. We were about to put panels on there, and then they put their hand up at the last second and said, actually, we've just found out we don't actually own that roof. We can't do anything with it. So please exclude that. And that's what we did.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I've never even been to Roehampton before, so you have to excuse me, but I was looking at the tennis courts as well as the pitch of the roof as well at the same time. So,
no, I mean, sorry, yeah, I was going to say, as I understand it, it's quite a prestigious club. So I learned quite a bit about it in the various visits that we made down there. So it's, for anyone that doesn't know where it is, it's quite close to Wimbledon. So it's got that kind of tennis community around there. It's got a full golf course on site. So a lot of people that use this just use it as a gym and use it for the golf, but it's predominantly a tennis club. There's also one of the buildings we didn't do. We're actually going on to a different project now. So I'm glad I managed to talk all the way through while that long video lasted. But one of the rooms we didn't do, the only one we didn't do is the one where, and forgive my lack of it, it's an indoor tennis court, and it's got like a soft top, like a fabric roof.
Right.
Unfortunately, you can't install solar panels on those, so we didn't. But yeah, it's quite a prestigious club. I think it's quite expensive to join, and I think there's a bit of a waiting list as well, as I understand it. So from what I was told when we was down there, it's about a 4 or 5 year waiting list just to join the club.
Yeah, I mean, some of our clubs have got temporary bubbles that come up in the winter and down in the summer. Right. Is there anything in the pipeline to sort of integrate maybe panels in that kind of environment at all?
I mean, you could do it. There's a technology called thin film, which is essentially just sticky solar. You can stick that onto fabric and membranes and the like. Unfortunately, the technology, as you'd probably imagine, is still quite expensive. So it's something for the future. It's something that can be done now, but I mean, a traditional PV system, as we'll get on, and I'll show an example, would normally pay for itself in around anything from sort of 3 to 8 years, depending on other factors. But when you start looking at thin film, you're probably pushing that out to 20 years. So it's probably not financially viable at the moment. When there's if the requirement is basically to save money and break even quite quickly.
So if a club wants to come to you and say, I mean, you know, anything that's quantifiable obviously can be reduced, and we're all looking at saving money. So are we saying that a club could potentially come to you and then you would work out their savings for them?
Yes, that's exactly what we did at Roehampton. That's what we do quite regularly. So yeah, if anyone's interested in exploring this for their club, what we'd probably do initially is we'd do a desktop exercise where we have a look at the roof from sort of Google Earth. We'll get someone in our technical team to do an initial layout just to say, look, this is how many panels we think we can fit. We'd probably ask for some information on the club, such as how much electricity you're using annually and what you're paying per kilowatt hour at the moment. And from that point, we can put together a desktop proposal that says, look, we can fit 50 kilowatts. It's going to cost this. It's going to save, you're going to save this based on what you're using and you're spending at the moment. And this is how long it's going to take for you to recoup the installation cost. if then that's of interest, we would arrange to come down. I mean, we'd be happy to come and visit in the first instance anyway, if anyone just wants us to come down and have a chat. But at that stage, we'd normally come down, do a bit of a survey, start having a look at distribution boards, cable routes, access for scaffolding, that sort of thing, firm up the proposal, and then take it from there, basically.
And is there because it used to be lucrative to feed back excess energy onto the grid. Is that still the case, David?
Not so much. So I mean, most meters, most businesses now are paying an average price is somewhere between 30 and 40 pence per kilowatt hour. So quite simply, if you generate a unit of electricity, a kilowatt hour on the roof, and you use it within the club, you're saving 35p if that's what you're paying. If it's a unit you would have bought from the grid that you then don't buy from the grid because you've generated it yourself, you've saved 35p. If you generate electricity and you don't have a live demand for it, it filters back to the grid, and then it varies depending on who your supplier is, but most export tariffs will only pay kind of between 5 and 10 pence a kilowatt hour. If you use someone like Octopus, you can extend that up to 15 pence a kilowatt hour. However, that's still less than what they're going to charge you for energy you're importing from the grid. So you're best to use it where you can. The other thing with Octopus, I think, is whilst they pay a better export rate, their import rate for electricity you buy from the grid, so at night, is higher as well. So you need to do a bit of number crunching to see if it's worth moving over to them because of the higher export, factoring that you're going to be paying a bit more for your traditional energy supply.
And do you install the electric vehicle points as well? Because is there a way that potentially, we all want to use the energy then if it's not as lucrative to feed back, but it's other ways that it could be used. So could you set up EV charging points potentially for members as well?
Yes, certainly that's something else we do. So we've got our own EV chargers, we've got our own back office platform. So I mean, so from a tennis club's point of view, a dream scenario, if you like, could be to install solar PV on the roof, install a couple of charging points. Hopefully, the fact that you've got charging points there is going to attract members that have got electric vehicles. They can come and charge their vehicles while they're at the club. If you've got a gym on site, you could get gym users there using the gym whilst charging their vehicles. You can then, obviously, they'll be paying to use the EV chargers. So whether that and it's coming from the solar or from the grid, the club then has the opportunity to open up a revenue stream by charging them for the energy they use. So again, go back to if you're paying 35p a kilowatt hour, chances are you're going to most EV chargers charge that are out in sort of public car parks charge users anywhere between 60p to £1 a kilowatt hour. So you're covering your costs of doing that and making a bit of money. Plus, yes, if you're powering those EV chargers with the solar panels you've got on the roof, then it's not even costing you the 35p that you're paying from the grid. So yeah, the technologies work well together, and it's both things we do. So we would be keen with any project that involves PV and EV. Would be really keen to help out with. I might jump ahead. You're probably going to ask me about batteries soon.
Yeah. What about the batteries?
So one thing to bear in mind, and it was a couple of conversations I had at the event on Saturday, actually, all sort of focused around floodlights. I know a lot of clubs have outdoor courts, they use floodlights. The thing with solar is obviously it only works when there's light. So directly powering a floodlight from a solar panel is not possible. However, if you've got large amounts of roof space, you can generate quite a bit of energy. If you're generating more than your live demand is during daylight hours, you can certainly look to store that energy in batteries rather than sending it back to the grid for your 5 or 10 pence you might get on the export tariff. You can then use that at night to power things like floodlights and other things. And then again, you're saving 35p because that's a unit of energy that you wouldn't be importing from the grid. Again, similarly with the EV chargers, it could be that someone comes and plugs in their car after darkness, and the batteries then powering that. So batteries in certain scenarios could complement a system quite well. One thing to note, similarly to the way solar panels have come down in cost over the last sort of decade or so, we think the batteries will follow. So at the moment, battery technology is a little bit behind the PV technology in terms of its cost efficiency. So in a lot of scenarios, we actually advise, look, don't install the battery yet. Install the PV, monitor that for a year or two, see how much of it you're using, see what benefit it's giving you. And if you find that you're sending sort of 20 to 30% or above back to the grid, then yes, in a year or two's time, that might be the time to retrofit a battery onto the system that you can do at any time. Start storing your surplus generation to prevent it going back to the grid and making sure you're getting the full use of it.
No, got you. And just from our point of view, in Mepham, we sort of lease our land, and half of our clubhouse, interesting scenario, half our clubhouse is leased from the village hall and half we own. But what's the legal situation between leasing a building off the local council, which a lot of clubs probably do, and obviously putting solar panels on them?
Yeah, certainly we come across this situation quite often. It's quite common that there's some sort of confusion ownership on buildings and that kind of thing. So where our client, if you like, isn't the ultimate building owner, then certainly it needs permission, and it needs some input and uptake from the owner. Quite often what we see is sometimes it can actually fall back on the building owner to actually have the PV installed. It's their building. What they can then do is charge the tenant for the energy that they're using at a lower rate than what they'd get from the grid. So we see a lot of building owners that have tenants in there. They pay for the outright installation, and then they might say, right, you're paying 35p a kilowatt hour for your grid electricity. We're going to sell you what you use from the solar PV at 25p a kilowatt hour. So in that scenario, the tenant doesn't have to put their hand in their pocket. They get to save some money on energy. They get to report some good CO2 offset. The building owner is getting a revenue because, okay, they've got the initial outlay of the installation. However, they're recouping 25 pence a kilowatt hour for everything that the tenant uses. Normally, even in that scenario, the building owner would have recouped their installation cost in somewhere between 6 to 8 years. Systems last 25 years. They've then got essentially a power supply on their roof that they can continue to charge the tenant for using the energy. And again, that will go up, because in 10 years' time, you're not going to be paying 35p a kilowatt hour. You're probably going to be paying £1.20 a kilowatt hour, and potentially more. We don't know. So what would normally happen is the building owner would increase that in line with, so they say, right, if you're paying 120 at the grid, now we'll charge you 95p, for example. So that will stay in place. But once they've recouped their initial capex spending, everything's profit from them. So it doesn't always work like that. It may be that if the club's got a long lease, then the building owner will be happy for the club to pay and own for the system, but they definitely need that permission from the landlord before they do obviously any major alterations to the building.
That was well timed. So that was my dog there, David. So apologies.
Right,
okay. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
So what we do is, if you don't mind, just hang fire there. We just got a couple of questions that have come in. So
Yep.
Was it Francis first I saw on the chat?
Rob, think not.
Yeah, Francis, if you want to unmute
Yep.
yourself and ask
Yeah.
David.
I think Rob's question was some first, but happy to say now. We're just like obviously looking at those pictures and hearing about some of the enormous clubs with car parks, etc. We're one of many in Kent that aren't anywhere near that size. Our rooftop would only be the size of a small house. We don't have a car park. You park on the road. It's a very old building that I would even suspect whether we couldn't even put solar panels on our roof. In terms of the weight of them, maybe. So yeah, is it something that we could even consider, I guess, would be my question.
Yeah, so you're Shooters Hill, Francis, aren't you?
Yeah.
I've got that right. I'll be honest, I'm only in Bexley Heath, so I'm only down the road from you.
Okay.
As soon as you said that, I went straight onto Google Earth and had a look, and yeah, you're right. It is a small roof, so
There's just no way. I mean,
you're right by the golf club, aren't you? So I know
Yeah.
exactly where you are. Yeah, I mean, what you've got there essentially. I mean, yes, you could have a system on there. I mean, obviously, every system needs a structural survey and whatever to the roof to check it can take the weight. But yes, looking at your roof, I mean, the one benefit you have got is you've got two big elevations, one face east, one face west, so they'd both be usable. But yeah, you're looking at more of a domestically sized system there. You say it's, I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to have a massive impact on energy usage and whatever. And yeah, if you've got no parking space, then I'm looking back on your roof at the moment. I don't know if you can actually see. Does it switch screen when I switch screen on when I'm sharing, or do you stay on the presentation?
No,
Still on the presentation at the moment.
Oh, okay. So you're not seeing what I'm seeing, but yeah, you small building. I mean, it's not a showstopper. You can do smaller buildings, but then things like your scaffolding costs and inverter costs become a high percentage of total project costs. So whereas on a bigger system, and I've got this example on here which I can talk through in a minute, we're seeing paybacks of under 4 years now on some systems. For a site like yours, you're probably looking sort of more 8 years, I would say, because of the sort of economies of scale and the installation costs.
Yeah,
Francis,
and ideally.
Francis,
Sorry, Andy, I was going to.
Sorry, refurbishing your clubhouse, wasn't there? Talk about the.
Yeah, there was a number of years ago, and that's what I was going to say. Actually, there'd probably be no point in terms of we would still like to revisit that. I'm saying we, me. It's certainly something for the future. We obviously raised half the amount, and then everything big lottery, etc., all sort of fell apart, and we didn't get the match funding. So it's sort of a case of what could we do, and at the moment we're just sort of patching it as best we can to keep moving forward in the hope that maybe in the future, but we're probably looking 8-10 years at least, I would imagine.
Francis, there is the Kent tennis loan as well, and I said that's for projects such as that as well. So it includes facilities. You could look at the Kent tennis loan potentially, and we can look at that for solar projects as well. So any sort of large capital costs, the Kent tennis loan system would support. Be it clubhouse, be it solar panels, especially obviously if it's around environmental sustainability. So that's certainly an area to look at. Yeah,
great, thank you.
And Rob, if you'd like to come in and ask your question, Rob Sheath, that is.
Yep. Thanks. There's you mentioned about the desktop sort of quote or whatever you would call it. Is there a charge for that?
No. If you're keen to have a look for your club, then no, that's something we would do initially in good faith. We'd have a look on Google Earth, put something together, say, look, this is what we think we can fit. This is what we think the rough benefit would be. Obviously, the more info we can get from yourselves, the better in terms of what you're using and what you're paying. But no, there's absolutely no charge for that. The first time there would be a charge is when we get sort of initial go ahead once doing a full proposal, and we need to start looking at things like structural surveys. So no, there's no charge for exploring.
And would this be the same? Because not only am I thinking of doing it at the tennis club, I'm thinking of doing it on my house as well. Would it be the same situation for a private house?
Yeah. So in terms of carbon free, we are a commercial installer. That doesn't mean we don't do domestics. We're not traditionally a domestic PV installer. But we do a lot of domestics. We do a lot of new builds. A lot of new build we do is sort of the full. Someone's building a housing estate. We do every domestic house on that estate. But yes, we certainly do. If I suppose the easiest way. So if we're doing something at your tennis club, we will probably look at your house as well quite happily.
Yeah.
Rob,
the tennis club is the roof is probably about, because it's just a tennis pavilion, although there is a clubhouse on the main club, so we could potentially do both, I suppose. Yeah. But the pavilion is about the same size as my house, so it's not massive, and also it is a wooden structure, so like a wooden chalet. I'm wondering whether that would actually be strong enough to support solar panels.
Potentially. I mean, the panels aren't actually that that heavy. Most panels weigh between 18 and 20 kilos each. So it's certainly something we can have a look at. And then, yeah, I mean, small, we do a lot of small commercial buildings. I mean, our sort of sweet spot is normally 30 kilowatts and above, but we don't rule anything out. We do systems as small as 4 to 5 kilowatts. So we'd certainly be happy to have a look, particularly if you wanted a couple of EV charging points as well.
Yeah, and the largely the electricity we use would be floodlighting, but you're saying that actually at the moment that's probably not that financially viable because we'd have to have batteries.
Essentially, if you wanted to directly power the floodlights from the solar PV, yes, because when the solar PV stops working, that's when your floodlights start working. So yeah, they don't work in tandem with one another. So yeah, you would be looking at battery, but it depends on what your daytime usage is. So is it daytime usage? I assume is minimal.
Yeah, I suppose in the winter because we've got electric heating. I suppose that's going to take a fair bit, but the rest of it is negligible. Really, it's just a couple of lights and that's about it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Certainly, if you've got electric heating, then the solar work with that, and then again, I suppose we're on the same thing with the floodlights. Unfortunately, whilst as Andy said at the start, today's a great generation day. A lot of winter days aren't great generation days, so you're not going to you're going to generate the bulk of what you generate sort of between late March and early October.
Yeah,
when the heating isn't on as much.
Yeah.
Rob, has Park Langley got solar panels on it?
Yeah.
I have. Yeah, fine. Okay.
That's a bit more like it's not as big as Roehampton, but it has got a very big roof, and that had solar panels put in, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I guess that might be.
Oh, right. Okay, then, yeah. And the new projected building that you're talking about with the paddle courts and whatever, the one they're looking at, yeah, it could be worth, if you do speak to anybody, to maybe get David involved in quoting for that, if there's a chance. Yeah. All right, Rob. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
All right. And Robert, do you want to, Robert Huddleston, do you want to come in with your battery storage question?
Yes, thanks, Andy. Whilst we are a cricket and tennis club, there's no way we could actually put solar panels on the roof because of the fear of damage by cricket balls. But there is an area away from the clubhouse that maybe could be used. And it's really, if you need battery storage as well, how much space do I need to allocate for batteries?
It depends on what level of system we install and how many batteries you need to. Typically, batteries come in sort of 12 kilowatt hour chunks, and then they're piggybacked to one another. So it really depends on the system size that we install and how much space we need. Interestingly, you mentioned about the cricket balls damaging panels. That's a common question because we've done quite a few golf clubs, and it always comes up. And believe it or not, when we've done systems at golf clubs, we haven't seen many issues. The glass used in solar panels is quite tough, and it's all sort of tested. And I think I think it's Southampton University that used to do it, and what they used to do is get ice bullets and fire them at the panels to check whether the glass was tough enough. So it's all quite tough glass. They're built to last 25 years, so they do have to put up with sort of stuff from the elements and what have you. If cricket balls are similar to golf balls, then what we used to find is the analogy that we've built over years of doing golf clubs is, yes, if you put a solar panel out on a driving range and you've got a driver out and you smash the ball as hard as you could straight into the solar panel, yes, it would smash. If you hit a ball high and it's lost its sort of velocity of you hitting it and it's just working on gravity and terminal velocity coming down, that's not enough on a golf ball to smash a solar panel. So I would think it would be a similar story with cricket balls. So I wouldn't. What I'm trying to say in a long way is I wouldn't completely discount your main clubhouse or whatever because you think cricket balls are going to smash panels, because I think you'd have to hit a cricket ball pretty hard for it to travel that distance and still have the power to smash a panel.
Well, I mean, there are some players who hit sixes regularly and they smash the tiles on the roof, and they also bend car panels. So that's the force they can deliver.
Quite possibly. I suppose the main thing I'm getting here is at a cricket club, it'll be the good players that damage stuff. At a golf club, it's the bad players that damage stuff. But no, it's a fair point. So yeah, I mean, we haven't done any. Well, actually, I say we haven't done any cricket clubs. We've actually just installed on the Utilita Bowl in Southampton. And there's actually an advert at the moment. You may have seen it on TV, which shows our installation. So there's a new Utilita advert, which is focused around solar, and we're basically their installer. So it actually shows that. I saw it the other day. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know they was doing an advert showing it, but they actually show the Utilita Bowl with all of our panels on it. So we've installed there, and I suppose we'll see what happens there when people start hitting sixes there, and presumably people sometimes hit the roof there.
Thank you very much, David and Andy, for that. I'll take that one away. Thanks.
Thanks. And we got one final one from Rob, maintenance program. Rob, if you want to come in and ask the question, Rob Slater.
Yeah. Hi, David. Very interesting presentation. Thank you. I'm at the same club as Andy, which is Mepham, quite house. Our main usage is effectively floodlights, which are brand new and really efficient. So it's a kind of probably something that we would look for in the future. But just as a general interest issue is what is the maintenance program required for installing panels?
Yeah, no. So in terms of maintenance, I mean, we advise an annual inspection as a minimum, just to check that all the electrics are working. There's no major issues we can see coming into the system. But having said that, it's quite low maintenance technology. So the panels there's no moving parts in a panel. They have a 25-year performance warranty, a 10-year workmanship warranty. Generally, if they work when they're installed, they tend to work for the full 25 years. They do increase in efficiency gradually over that time. The one thing that will go during the life of the system is the inverter. So forgive me for anyone that doesn't know, when you generate electricity using the panels, you generate DC electricity. That has to pass through an inverter, which converts it into AC electricity, which is the normal stuff that you're getting from the grid. So then it's ready to be mixed in with that. The inverter's got a fan in it. That always goes anywhere between year 5 and year 15 normally. So that's the main thing that needs to be replaced during the 25-year minimum life of the system. In terms of panel cleaning, it really depends on location. So yeah, we'd recommend a clean, generally a minimum of every 5 years. But in some areas, it needs to be done more regularly. Things that affect how regularly it needs to be done is distance from the coast, systems near the coast, which obviously I know isn't an issue in Mepham, but tend to get a lot of salt from the sea that creates a film on the panels. Systems in really urban areas, so central London, get a lot of pollution. And then again, systems that are near where there's a lot of birds in the area, you do get bird poo on the panels, and that does need to be cleaned off as well. One thing we always recommend is having a smart generation meter installed. What that does is it allows us to remotely monitor the performance of the system without having to get up on the roof, and you can see when your performance is dipping and when you might need to go and investigate or clean the panels. So that helps to reduce the number of fixed maintenance visits.
Right, thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, fine. That's all the questions. Did you want to go back to your slide again, David, just to sort of finish off on those, if that's okay?
Yes, certainly. I mean, this is something that we had at the awards. So this is just an indicative example, just to show what is feasible. I mean, this is based on a 100 kilowatt peak system. Obviously, like I say, a lot of clubs probably won't have the roof space for this. I mean, for context, Roehampton, across all their buildings, I think it was about 450 kilowatts. So this is a reasonable size system. It's not small, but it's not massive kind of thing. So, but in an indicative example, 100 kilowatts, installation cost would be about £80,000. It varies depending on scaffolding requirements, roof type, etc. In Kent, you're going to generate around about 85,000 kilowatt hours per year on that. And in this example, we've said that 75% of this is being used on site, and 25% is being exported back to the grid. So what that means is, of that 85,000 kilowatt hours a year, 75% is creating a saving of 35 pence per kilowatt hour, because we've used that average rate that I mentioned earlier of 35 pence. And then the other 25% will be going back to the grid, and we've only factored in, I think, 5 pence for that. So that's pretty much the minimum export rate you could expect to get. So in this scenario, this building in the first year, they save £22,000 on their energy usage. They get another £1,062 on what they send back to the grid, and that hopefully answers the question from earlier: is it better to use it or send it back to the grid? You can see there's a massive difference in what you get. So total income and savings from year one is 23,375, and then, as you can see, we've got that eating away at the initial capex investment that's happened here. So in this scenario, this club has recouped all of their installation costs after 3.25 years. So by the end of year 4, they're kind of into the black. And then, like I said, the system has a minimum life of 25 years. So after 25 years, they've saved £947,000 on top of recouping their initial investment. So that's just this will obviously vary on site to site, roof to roof, case to case, but that's a very indicative example. The other thing I was going to talk about was, we touched a little bit on PPA earlier, but there's different funding projects. You don't have to just outright purchase a system and use all those funds. Basically, other things you can do, obviously asset finance is always an option. We find quite often that whatever you pay back in your monthly or quarterly finance repayments is outweighed by the savings. So it is possible to have a cash neutral project from day one by using asset finance in the right scenario. There's other programs as well. We work with a company called Repowering London, and I believe that they'd happily do any projects down in Kent, because they tend to work anywhere in the home counties. But they're a community energy company, and what they do is they go out and they sort of crowdfund from the local area. They will pay for your system, and then they'll charge you for what you use under the PPA, as I mentioned earlier. So it's a good community story, that, because they're not for profit. It allows people in the local area to invest in a community project. So I could say, right, I'm going to put 250 quid into this, and I've paid for 250 pounds of what might be a 25 grand project. And then, as the club pays the PPA back to Repowering London, the investors in the local area that have funded the community project get their money back plus a bit of a return. So that's something else that we do. So they will do systems from 30 kilowatts upwards. So even smaller clubs that haven't quite got the roof space that they've got at Roehampton and other larger clubs, that could still be an option. If initial investment is a problem, they would have a look at it, and if they think it's a project with merit, then they would look to crowdfund that. They've generally always got a lot of interest in people wanting to be involved in their project, so they don't struggle to raise funds. And if it meets the financial returns for them to be able to pay people back, then they'll do that. So there's other options as well, rather than just sort of dipping your hand in your pocket and taking 50, 100 grand out to buy a system outright and wait 4 or 5 years for it to pay for itself.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting, David. Yeah. No, fine. Is that the end of your slideshow, so to speak?
Yes, that's it. We've sort of gone back and forward, but I think we've covered everything that I wanted to get across. I mean, what I'll do, if it's okay, Andy, I'll send you after this a link to we've got a sort of commercial brochure, and if you can distribute that out, then people can have a look at their leisure. There's some more info in that, and by all means, if anyone's got any questions, either now or later on, feel free to drop me a line. If you've got a club you want us to have an initial look at from a desktop perspective, then we'd be happy to do so.
No, thank you. I should say that David came down to our awards event and supported that, and they're only based in Ruton as well, so they are a Kent-based company. So it's good to have a prestigious company that's doing work at Roehampton based in Kent. And what you're saying is you're free to come along to any Kent clubs is fantastic, and just give them a bit of an idea of what can or can't be achieved. Brilliant. Thanks very much, David. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks.
I just want to also touch on our Kent Tennis Climate and Biodiversity Grant scheme. So that's been running since 2024, and we've basically pushed out the dates to 2025 as well. This is like individual grants of sort of £200 to match fund up to £800 for LTA registered venues. But the idea with this is to sort of transform your spaces at your tennis clubs into sort of biodiverse areas that sort of restore, conserve and enhance habitats for the long term. So we're talking about supporting initiatives in tennis venues to change behaviours to increase the protection of our green spaces and eco-habitats. So if you have an area at your tennis club that you would like to cultivate, be it planting or turning it into an area of habitat for an eco habitat, then we would like to hear from you, and we've got an application form that we're put on from today as well. But yeah, anything that you can think of, harvesting rainwater. I know that £200 to £800 is not going to get you many solar panels, but think outside the box on this. If there is anything that you can think of that you would like to do at your club, it could be as simple as purchasing sort of hanging baskets or whatever. But think of the things that you can do to encourage wildlife around your club, and we're happy to showcase those on Kent Tennis News. And why wouldn't you apply for a £200 to £800 grant in doing that? So any questions from that at all? It's been on our website since the end of last year, but no clubs have taken it up yet. So I'm here to sort of advertise it and say, we've all got green spaces at our clubs, and just think of ways to utilise them, really.
I'd really like that, Andy. That's something I'd really want to do. So yeah, I'll take a look today.
Yeah, no, great, thank you. And finally, you've probably seen the new LTA partnership with a company called Juice. So that's ball recycling. So a staggering 15 million tennis balls are used in Great Britain every year, and we tend to only play with them for about an average of 4 to 6 hours on court, and they take 300 years to degrade. So an awful long time. So LTA have linked up with Juice. It is a subscription model. So the idea is that you'll pay £10 a month for this subscription model, and then they will supply a box that will take up to 250 balls. Members of your club will then put the balls in this container, and then the container will be taken away. The container is also a cost of £15 per container to take away. But if you are, and hopefully you're not, banging balls onto the nearest bit of farmland or something like that when you're done with them. But 300 years of degrading a ball is a substantial length of time. So just make sure these balls are being recycled as much as you can. I know that there's Battersea Dogs Home, for instance, love tennis balls or whatever. We're in Mepham, and we've got a branch near Brands Hatch, so they sort of go there as well. But if not, then yeah, subscription model, £10 a month. I know Sundridge Park have used it already, and then £15 per collection. And the company's Juice, in which we'll send you a link on that as well.
Sorry, I'm Becky here from Thomas Wells. I was just going to say we installed these last week, actually.
Okay.
Got two. So we haven't got any feedback on them. We've got them. They look great. Lots of members, because they're sort of quite circular, so they're like, the kids think they look quite good fun. So they just pop balls in, and yeah.
Thanks, Becky. And I think they're going to soles of rubber trainers, I was told, actually. So so they're being recycled and reuse. So I know parts of I read up last night, parts of Australia, they use resurfacing their courts with parts of rubber or recycled tennis balls as well. So they actually recycle or recoat the rubber compound on their tennis courts with recycled tennis balls as well. So interesting stories coming out really. But yeah, any other questions from you guys today at all regarding either solar panels for David or any recycling tips that you're doing? Yeah, Jane, please.
Can I just ask David, do you know if the Carbon Trust still gives grants for things like solar panel installation?
No, unfortunately, grants, and there used to be something called the feed-in tariff, which paid you for everything you generated. They were introduced many years ago when the technology cost was much higher to sort of bring payback periods down. So when I started doing this 12 years ago, with the feed-in tariff, you could get a payback of sort of 6 or 7 years. What's happened in the last 10 years, yes, it was frustrating that grants and feed-in tariffs disappeared, but then we've seen the technology costs come down so much, and unfortunately energy costs go up so much that we're now seeing shorter payback times without any subsidy or grant than we ever did when they did exist, if that makes sense. So no, they unfortunately they don't typically exist anymore. Sometimes they exist in a more local area, so some local authorities may have their own schemes, but there's not many, I don't think, available anymore. But the technology cost has come down to a point where paybacks are shorter than they've ever been.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Rob, you've got your hand up. Rob Sheath.
No. I set to unmute on my phone.
Right.
I'm just trying to look up, because we recycle our old tennis balls, and we've, over the last, it's been a while, but we've raised about £3,000. I don't think it's reduced, because one of the ladies at the club, she organises it, and we have to pay £5 a box that they supply, and then we send them off. So we don't have a subscription as far as I'm aware. So it sounds a bit better than this juice option. So I could send it out. Would someone want me to send it to someone to?
Yeah, send it to Janice, Rob, and I'll take a look at it first of all.
Okay,
that's okay. Yeah, fine. Is that an LTA approved scheme or just something that you found online?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, because this one of the committee members has taken it on. I haven't been on it, so I think it's just something we found and have been using.
Yeah, no, good. We'll send out various options, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, thanks for everything today, David, and I'll hang back to Janice, if that's okay.
All right.
And Dan, thanks, David, for joining us. It's great to have different people joining us each day.
We can't quite hear you, Janice.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Andy, and thank you, David, for joining us today. It's been lovely hearing all about the solar panels and looking at the Roehampton Club. So thank you, and I'm sure everyone will take that all back and think about what they can do at their venues. So thank you very much.
No worries.
If anyone's got any good news stories to share with us today, anything happened in your venues that you want to share? I know we've shared our awards, which we're really excited about. So that was our big news story today. So if not, then all I want to say to you is that the Kent Tennis News has been circulated twice a month now, and hope you're enjoying reading it. If any of you on the screen here today are not receiving it, then do let me know and I can look into that for you. Also, what I'm asking here is for you to share this newsletter. We need more subscribers. We've got lots already, and we're feeling that people might be missing out on some of this information. So so other committee members, you can share it with committee members, and you can also share it with your members. So do share. I'm asking you all, please share with at least 2 people. You can either contact me with permission from them, and I can add them to our mailing list, or they can click on the link on the newsletter, which is on the Kent Tennis website under the news section. So all the copies of our newsletter are available on our website, and within that newsletter there is a link to click on to subscribe. So that's a big ask for me to everybody, so that we can get more subscribers seeing all our information that we're sending out. So other than that, I've got nothing else to add. So our next meeting is going to be on the 18th of March. We haven't got a topic as yet. So as Andy's mentioned at the beginning, if there's something out there that you really want us to discuss, we will look to do that. We have had an option on competitions, and we've had an option on maybe officials and how to get into officiating. So there are a couple of suggested topics. So if anyone else has got anything that they'd like us to deliver, then do let me know, and that'd be great. So I look forward to seeing you all in March, and hope you all have a good week.
Thanks, Janice. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Andy.
you.
Thanks, Janice.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.